Let me also tell you why we are doing this webinar series, Rethinking City, for so long, and what do we want to achieve. For years, I have maintained that this effort is trying to build a wider societal partnership to address the daunting urban challenge that India is facing. And that the challenge is so complex and demanding that no single entity could handle it on its own. It needs a multilateral, multidimensional, and multi-layered partnership. And this webinar series is a small attempt to taking the challenge to the people, to the stakeholders who matter. For years, I have defined the urban challenge in my own way. Only yesterday, I came across its new articulation. It has been spelled out by none other than the ex-chief of the country's Niti Aayog, Shri Amitabh Kant. It is so interesting that I thought I should share at least a part of it with you in the context of this webinar series. What is interesting is this. He is not talking about making cities livable and inclusive for the slum dwellers and making space for working of the informal sector, entrepreneurs, and service providers. He's suggesting to make cities attractive, livable, investable, and welcoming for those who may want to return to the country forced by President Trump's rupees $1 lakh fee, almost rupees 1 crore, for HB1 visa. His list is long. I'm just presenting a few selected items because this is also a part of the urban challenge that we must deal with. And he says, to make them, that is, the cities, innovative hubs, Indian cities need to improve the quality of life they offer. This is India's opportunity. As barriers rise, skilled professionals, technical experts, and founders will be returning to or investing in India. To convert this into a lasting advantage, he suggests India must give them cities they can live and work in. Cities that prioritize quality healthcare, clean air and water, reliable public transport, affordable housing, world-class research institutions, and predictable regulation. And if we get the urban ecosystem right, India can become, and this is important, the hub for the next wave of labs, startups, and medical excellence. As of now, just 15 Indian cities contribute 30% of India's GDP. Their ability to drive an extra 1.5% of growth will determine India's ambition to become a $30 trillion plus economy by 2047, and this is worth noting. Yet, they are hobbled by air pollution, water scarcity, urban flooding, garbage mounting, and poor governance. They are not world class, but with the right intervention, they can be world class. We must discard, and this is interesting, the failed fallacy of restricting the floor space index to artificially low levels. Singapore has demonstrated that planned, dense vertical development can coexist with high livability and biodiversity. And then he says, states must strengthen urban governance structures, build a cadre of professional urban managers, and grant greater freedom to cities. And he goes on And then he says that people don't leave India for just a higher paying job, they leave for a better quality of life. And I'm saying all this in the context of what we're discussing, quality of life of all people, including the slum dwellers. I thought you should mull over this while a group of highly motivated panelists tell us why and how Odisha's slum development model is unique, offers much to learn from, and deserves a wider application and adoption. With this long introduction, over to Shishir ji for the webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kritishaji, for such a nice introduction. And this is the fourth webinar in the series. And people, some of you might not have participated, for you I am just briefing it. In the first session, we have discussed the international and national experiences, and also the government of India. The secretary has also participated and also shared his views on this also. And in the second webinar, we have invited the government of Odisha and the leaders from the different partner agencies like the Tata Steel Foundation, the Janagraha and Center for Policy Research. People, those who have also elaborated that what way they have contributed, why they have been involved into this program, and what way they have contributed. And in the third webinar, we have discussed that how the slum dwellers are being, their land rights has been strengthened, they are being provided the tenure security in the slums, and what are the challenges and what are the learnings from that exercise. And I am saying in one way, this is very successful. At least 41 people have contacted to me after this interview. They wrote me mails and they sent me messages and they wanted to know more on this type of on the work. So I think this has one of the indicator of the success of this webinar. And today we are having a very experienced members with us, those who are discussing on the slum upgradation. When we are discussing on the slum upgradation, what happens that always it is being told that the slum residents should be part of the slum upgradation. But actually how it has been done and what way it has been done and if is it possible, that will be discussed by all of today's those people who are going to speak. They will discuss this, and with all of this, first we have one representative from a slum dweller association. She is Mamatarani Adhikari, who is the president of one of the slum in Jatni, which is in Khurdha district of Odisha. And see, if you wanted to see her slum, you can visit and see that what way she is leading the entire group and also this development of the slum. Today you can go to visit to that slum and you will understand no way it is less than any part of that city. It's better, I would say that it's better than that city, the city infrastructure and the civic services that has been provided. And we have with us Mr. Shubhagato Dasgupta also, who is a senior fellow with the Center for Policy Research and heads of Scaling City and long experience in the field of urban development. And he is an architect from SEPT, and also he is a MSc from University of College of London. So he has long experience and involved from the day one with this slum upgradation program in Odisha. And with us, we have Anindita also, who is an independent consultant, but she is also an urban economist and development practitioner. She was working with CPR and was closely associated with this program in Odisha also. And we have with us AJS Vishnukanth, who is also former CPR consultant, CPR consultant, and is an architect and an urban planner. And he was based in Odisha, Bhubaneswar, and he was entirely involved into the day-to-day execution of the program. And also we have my colleague Suchisnata, who is going to translate if there is some challenges of understanding of the language from the Slum Dweller Association, she is there to translate it. And I would say that please ensure that if you have some questions in your mind, please put it in the chat box in the question answer, then we'll try to respond all of this. And also today we have decided that because we are going to discuss two areas. One is the slum upgradation, and another area is the how we have started developing the new livable habitat also. So there will be two question answer sessions. Once the first presentation is being done, there will be a question answer session, and at the end there will be a question answer session. So I am not wasting time on this. So now I am requesting the Slum Dweller Association President Mamatarani Adhikari to elaborate her experiences, what she has, how she has entirely she has participated in the entire process. Now let her explain her experience so that we will be able to understand that what way the Slum Dweller Associations have participated in the entire process. Over to you, Suchi.
ममता मैडम आपण एबे आपनकर एक्सपीरियंस टिके शेयर करिवे कि आपनकर जो स्लम अपग्रेडेशन काम हेइथिला सेथरे आपनकर जो स्लम डॉलर एसोसिएशन रा कोन रोल थिला आपनकर कोन रोल थिला केमिति बनिला आउ सेई जो कामतिक हेइथिला सेथरे आपनकर भागीदारी की प्रकार रहिथिली. So I just asked Madam to share her experiences of how as a Slum Dweller Association representative and entity, how has been her role and what are the development works that her community has undertaken. Madam, take a question.
नमस्कार सर मु ममताराणी अधिकारी आम जो जटणी म्युनिसिपालिटी वार्ड नंबर 9 रो प्रेसिडेंट. स्लम को लगे बस्ती बासिंदार लोक एत भल पाती लोक मैंने कारण जेहेतु से माने गरीब श्रेणीर लोक मैंने आगुरी सेमती कौन प्रकार सुविधा नथिला. जेबेठारु उषा सर्वे हैला 2017 मसीहारु सेबेठारु धीरे 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 लोक माने जानिले जे ये जो जागा मिशन कार्यक्रम कौन आमे धर केमिति गरीब बासिंदा माने लोक धर को टाइप रो माने कच्चा घरे थांदी कौन प्रकार सुविधा न थाए रास्ता नथिला पानी नथिला लाइट रो सुविधा नथिला. ये आगुरु जो म्युनिसिपालिटी आमे जाउथुलु खतरनाक भलिया व्यवहार थिला व्यवहार भलो नथिला किंतु उषा सर्वे जेबे ठारू हेची तापर हमर एसडीओ कमिटी गठन करा गला. एसडीओ कमिटी जितले गठन करा गला आमे भी जानिनु जागा मिशन एते एते धीरे धीरे इंप्रूव करियो बोली. जागा मिशन हम 10 जन को नेई की हमर गोटे कमिटी गठन करा गला जहा कि
म्युनिसिपालिटी टिके रहि जानतो से कहि दियंतो ट्रांसलेशन कर दियंतो. हां
मैडम वो एति की ट्रांसलेशन आगे कर दोची. So what Mamta madam initiates by saying that a slum is something that has not been very nicely looked upon. Same with the inmates of the slums. So when initially this Jaga mission came into implementation, even the communities had no idea what is it going to bring on to the slums. So they could eventually, they also have experiences moving to the municipality offices where the people were not properly treated. However, she mentions that when Jaga mission was introduced, they were asked to form a small committee of 10 members and then they formed the committee. And in formation of that committee and with advancement, gradually the slum witnessed, particularly after the Usha survey in 2017, the slums witnessed development like road, basic street lights, and all of the housing and the land rights is what she is mentioning. Madam, maybe aapna kuhantu.
जेतले सर्वे हेतले हमर लेडीज लोक बहुत अछन जेंट्स कम अछन कारण आमे निज गोटे स्वतंत्र परिचय पाइलु जहा कि हमर गोटे परिचय नथिला. एई जागा मिशन द्वारा हमर गोटे परिचय अछि. महिला माने निजस्व कहले गोटे जानि परले गोटे घरर भी निजे घरे स्वामी आगुरु बिगडुथिले कि सासु ससुर बिगडुथिले एबे जेतले आमे धर मीटिंग करू कि जाऊ से माने भी खुशी होंदी जा गोटे हम बहु कि मो स्त्री कि भलरे जाउची भलरे आसुची जाकि गोटे सम्मान मिलुची. କାରଣ ଆମର ହେତେବେଳେ କୌଣସି ପ୍ରକାର ସମ୍ମାନ ନଥିଲା କି ଆମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଯାଉଥିଲୁ ବ୍ୟବହାର ବି ଲୋକଙ୍କର ଖରାପ ଥିଲା କି ଏବେ ବି ଆମେ ନିଜକୁ ନିଜେ ସବୁ ସମାଧାନ କରିପାରୁଛୁ କାହାର ଗୋଟେ ଥାନା ହଉ କୋର୍ଟ ହଉ କିମ୍ବା ଘରୋଇ କଳିକ ଝଗଡା ହଉ ଆମେ ନିଜେ ଯାଇକି ଏଇ ଲେଡିଜ ମାନେ ଯାଇକି ଆମେ ସମାଧାନ କରିପାରୁଛୁ ଜାଗା ମିଶନ ଦ୍ୱାରା ଆମର ଉପକୃତ ହେଇଛି ଯେତେବେଳେ ରାସ୍ତା ନଥିଲା ରାସ୍ତା ହେଇଗଲା ଡ୍ରେନ ହେଇଗଲା ପାର୍କ ହେଇଗଲା ଆମ ଗରିବ ଶ୍ରେଣୀର ଲୋକମାନେ ପାର୍କ ବୋଲେ ପିଲାମାନେ ଖେଳିବାକୁ କୌଣସି ପ୍ରକାର ସୁବିଧା ନଥିଲା ମିନି ପାର୍କ ହେଲା ଆମର ମିଶନ ଶକ୍ତି ଘର ହେଇଛି ଲାଇଟ୍ ଷ୍ଟ୍ରିଟ୍ ଲାଇଟ୍ ବି ନଥିଲା ଅନ୍ଧାରରେ କିଟକିଟିଆ ଅନ୍ଧାରରେ ଲୋକ ଯିବା ଆସିବା କରୁଥିଲେ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଷ୍ଟ୍ରିଟ୍ ଲାଇଟ୍ ହେଇଛି ଆମର ସହରାଞ୍ଚଳ ଭଳି ଆମ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଆମ ଜଟଣୀ ସହରାଞ୍ଚଳ ଭଳି ବସ୍ତି ବାସିନ୍ଦା ପୁରା ଟୋଟାଲ ରୂପାନ୍ତରିତ ହୋଇଅଛି
वो टिके ट्रांसलेट कर दो मैम तो Mamta madam has to say that they were in their community there are more of women than the male members. However, they did not had a position neither in the family nor in the community. With this committee formation of Slum Dweller Association, these women actually came up and gradually they experienced that there is a shift of their position, not even in their families, but also in the community. So earlier, there are instances where the women of the house have not been properly treated or properly positioned. However, when they were key members to the committees and they started taking decisions and they started doing the development works in the slums, then gradually the importance and the significance of women was accepted in the committee and society. This is one thing that she has cited. And she has also cited that not only the development works, now the women are going and addressing issues relating to legal matters, relating to police stations and all of the other things for the welfare of the committee that is required. So they are indulged in these things also. The third point which she has cited is being into an economically weaker section and an informal settlements, they had never experienced anything called a park or a recreational area within their slums. So under this initiative, they also have a mini park in their community where the children and the elderly are also enjoying. And the fourth point which she mentions is, Madam, last को अपन टा कौन कहितले गोटे
ମୁଁ କହିଥିଲି ଆମର ଯେହେତୁ ପାର୍କରେ ପିଲାମାନେ ଖେଳିବାକୁ ମାନେ ଯାଆନ୍ତିନି ଆମେ ସେ ମିନି ପାର୍କ ଆମର ଷ୍ଟ୍ରିଟ୍ ଲାଇଟ୍ ଆଉ କୌଣସି ପ୍ରକାର ଅନ୍ଧାର ନାହିଁ ଆମର ସହରାଞ୍ଚଳ ଭଳି ରୂପାନ୍ତରିତ ହେଇପାରିଛି
Okay. The last point which she mentioned is that in very similar line to how a city functions, where there is proper street lighting and there are also other amenities, the community is now enjoying all of those. So it's no more any exclusion or any discrimination or any significant variance which they are experiencing. So they see that whatever the Jaffney city looks like, they are very much a part of that. Again, madam, over to you.
ଆମର ତ ସବୁ ପ୍ରକାର ସୁବିଧା ହେଇଛି କିନ୍ତୁ ଏତିକି ଗୋଟେ ଅବଶୋଷ ରହିଛି ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମର ଆହୁରି ବାକି ରହିଛି ଆମର ଗୋଟେ ଆମେ ଚାହିଁଥିଲୁ ଯେ ଯେହେତୁ ଏଠିକାର ବସ୍ତି ବାସିନ୍ଦା ଲୋକ ରହୁଛନ୍ତି ଆଜ୍ଞା ସବୁ ଯୋଉ ମାଇକ୍ରୋ ଫାଇନାନ୍ସ କରୁଛନ୍ତି ଆମକୁ ସେତେବେଳେ କୁହାଯାଇଥିଲା ନାହିଁ ଏଠି ଗୋଟେ ମିନି ବ୍ୟାଙ୍କ କରାଯିବ ଯାହାକି ତମର ଗରିବ ଶ୍ରେଣୀର ଲୋକମାନେ କାରଣ ବାହାରୁ ଏତେ ଟଙ୍କା ଦେଇକି ସୁଧ ଆଣୁଛନ୍ତି ଅକସ୍ମାତ ଗୋଟେ ପିଲା ଯଦି ପାଠ ପଢିବାକୁ 50,000 ଟଙ୍କା ଦରକାର ହଉଛି ସିଏ ଗୋଟେ ଘରୋଇ ସୁଧ ଆଣୁଛି ଯାହାକି ଗୋଟେ ଗରିବ ଶ୍ରେଣୀ ପାଇଁ ମାନେ ଅତି ଗୋଟେ ଭାରି ପଡୁଛି କାରଣ ସେ ଏତେ ଟଙ୍କା ତାପରେ ଘରୋଇ ସୁଧ ଆଜ୍ଞା 5 ଟଙ୍କିଆ 10% 5% ଇଣ୍ଟରେଷ୍ଟ ନଉଛନ୍ତି ତାପରେ ଏ ଯୋଉ ଜାଗା ମିଶନ ଆମେ ଯୋଉ ପଟ୍ଟା ଆଜ୍ଞା ଲ୍ୟାଣ୍ଡ ରାଇଟ୍ ଯୋଉ ପାଇଛୁ ସେଟା ବ୍ୟାଙ୍କରେ ଆଜ୍ଞା ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ସୁଦ୍ଧା ବି ଇସ୍ୟୁ କରୁନି କାରଣ ଏଇଟା ନେଟ୍ ଶୋ କରୁନି ବ୍ୟାଙ୍କ ମଧ୍ୟ ଲୋନ ବି ଦଉନାହାନ୍ତି କି ବ୍ୟାଙ୍କ ଯଦି ପଟ୍ଟା ବି ନେଇକି ଯାଉଛୁ ସିଏ ବି କହୁଛନ୍ତି ଯେ ନା ଏ ପଟ୍ଟାରେ କିଛି ଭ୍ୟାଲୁ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ସୁଦ୍ଧା ନାହିଁ କାରଣ ଏଟା ଅନଲାଇନ କୌଣସି ପ୍ରକାର ଦେଖଉନି ତମେ ଲୋନ କେମିତି ନବ ସେଥିପାଇଁ ଆମର ଏଟା ଆମେ ଜାଗା ମିଶନ ଯେତେ ମିଟିଂ ପତ୍ର ହେଇଥିଲା ଆମେ ବି କହିଥିଲୁ ନାଇଁ ଆଜ୍ଞା ଆମର ଗୋଟେ ଏଠି ମିନି ବ୍ୟାଙ୍କ କରାଯାଉ ଯାହାକି ଲୋକ ଗରିବ ଶ୍ରେଣୀର ଲୋକମାନେ ଉପକୃତ ହେବେ ସେଥିପାଇଁ ବି ହଁ କରିଥିଲେ ସବୁ ସାର୍ ମାନେ ଯେତେକ ଆସିଥିଲେ ଏବେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଆପଣ ମାନେ ସମସ୍ତେ ଅଛନ୍ତି ମୋର ଗୋଟେ ରିକ୍ୱେଷ୍ଟ ସବୁ ମାନେ ଯେତେ ତ ଆପଣ ମାନଙ୍କ ଦ୍ଵାରା କି ସରକାରଙ୍କ ଦ୍ଵାରା ବହୁତ ସୁବିଧା ଆମେ ପାଇଛୁ ଯାହାକି ବସ୍ତି ଯୋଉଟା ଭାବି ନଥିଲା ବସ୍ତି ସେଟା ପାଇପାରିଛି କାରଣ ସେ ସ୍ୱପ୍ନରେ ଭାବି ନଥିଲା ଯେ ମୁଁ ଜଟଣୀରେ ହଉ କିମ୍ବା କୌଣସି ଏରିଆରେ ହଉ ଏତେ ସୁନ୍ଦର ଘର ଆବାସ ଯୋଜନା ପାଇଛି ମାନେ ରାସ୍ତା ପାଇଛି ଷ୍ଟ୍ରିଟ୍ ଲାଇଟ୍ ପାଇଛି ପାଣିର 24 ଘଣ୍ଟାର ପାଣି ସୁବିଧା ପାଇଛି କୌଣସି ଅସୁବିଧା ହେଉନାହିଁ ମାନେ ପାର୍କ ପାଇଛି, ଖେଳ ପଡିଆ, ଯାହାକି ନିଜେ ଚାହିଁଲେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଆମେ ଆଜ୍ଞା କଲ୍ୟାଣୀ ମଣ୍ଡପ, ଗୋଟେ ଗରିବ ଶ୍ରେଣୀର ଲୋକ କଲ୍ୟାଣୀ ମଣ୍ଡପ ଗୋଟେ 1,00,000 ଟଙ୍କା ଦେଇକି ପୁଅ ବାହାଘର ହଉ କିମ୍ବା ଝିଅ ବାହାଘର ହଉ କିମ୍ବା ବ୍ରତଘର ବି ହଉ କରିବା ଅସମ୍ଭବ। ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଆମର ଯୋଉ ହେଇଛି ଏଠି ଗୋଟେ ବଡ ଖେଳ ପଡିଆ ଟାଇପର କି ମିନି ପାର୍କ ଭଳିଆ, ସେଠି ଆମେ ଯୋଉ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ପରିଚୟ ଗୃହ ଅଛି, ଆମର ଗୋଟେ ୟୁଜେସ୍ ଚାର୍ଜ କରିକି ଆମେ ସେଠି ବାହାଘର କଲ୍ୟାଣୀ ମଣ୍ଡପ ଟାଇପର ଆଦାୟ କରିକି କରିପାରୁଛୁ। ସେଥିପାଇଁ ମାନେ ସରକାରଙ୍କୁ ବି ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ, କାରଣ ଏତେ ବଡ ସୁବିଧା ଆମମାନଙ୍କୁ ଦେଇଛନ୍ତି, କେତେ ବଡ କାମ କରିଛନ୍ତି। ସେଥିପାଇଁ ଆମର ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ଅନୁରୋଧ ଯେ ଏଇ ବସ୍ତି ବାସିନ୍ଦାଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ଏଇଟା ଗୋଟେ ମାନେ ଗୋଟେ ମିନି ବ୍ୟାଙ୍କ ଟିକେ ହେଲେ ଲୋକ ଉପକୃତ ହୁଅନ୍ତେ। ଆମେ ମହିଳା ମାନେ ଆମର ଜଟଣୀରେ ଆମ ୱାର୍ଡ ନମ୍ବର 9ରେ ମ୍ୟାଡାମ ଆମର 75% ଲେଡିଜ, ଜେଣ୍ଟସ ଆମର ଅଳ୍ପ, ଯାହାକି ଜେଣ୍ଟସ ବହୁତ ଲୋକ ନଥାନ୍ତି। ଆମେ ନିଜେ ଆମେ ଜାଣିଛୁ ଯେ ଆମର ଗୋଟେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଲ୍ୟାଣ୍ଡ ଆମ ଯେତେବେଳେ ପାଇଛୁ, ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଆମେ ଯୋଉ ପଟ୍ଟା ପାଇଛୁ ମ୍ୟାଡାମ, ସେଟା ଆମ ନାଁରେ, କୌଣସି ପୁରୁଷ ଲୋକଙ୍କ ନାଁରେ ନାହିଁ। କାରଣ ଆମେ ନିଜକୁ ନିଜେ ଭାରି ଗର୍ବିତ, ଯାହା ହଉ ଆମ ନାଁରେ 484 ଡିସମିଲ ଗୋଟେ ପଟ୍ଟା ପାଇଛୁ କି ଗୋଟେ ପରିଚୟ ପାଇଛୁ। କାରଣ ଆମ ପାଇଁ ଗୋଟେ ମାନେ ସ୍ୱତନ୍ତ୍ର ସରକାର ପରିଚୟ ଦେଇଛନ୍ତି ଆମ ବସ୍ତି ବାସିନ୍ଦା କି ସ୍ଲମ ଏରିଆ ପାଇଁ, ଏଇଟା ଗୋଟେ ଗର୍ବ। ସେଥିପାଇଁ ମୁଁ ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କୁ ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ ଦଉଛି, କାରଣ ମତେ ଏଥିରେ ସାମିଲଦାର କରିବାରୁ। ଆହୁରି ମଧ୍ୟ କହୁଛି ଯେ ସ୍ଲମ ଆଉ ଟିକେ ଆଗକୁ, ଆଉ ଟିକେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ମଝିରେ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ବନ୍ଦ ହେଇଯାଇଛି, ଆଉ ଟିକେ ଆଗକୁ ଯାଉ, ଆଉ ଟିକେ ସୁନ୍ଦରୀକରଣ ହେଲେ ଭଲ ଲାଗିବ।
Again, madam, thank you very much, madam. I'll now translate what ma'am has mentioned. So she has one thing which she has significantly mentioned is that the land rights which has been issued in the name of the women, and that has changed the paradigm, positioning the women again in a very significant position. However, with this, she also has a request that they want a mini bank within the slum, because the slum communities are facing issues in case they want some funding for better education of the children or any other aspect. Here they are facing a problem. They have also faced a problem when they go to the bank to deposit the land right certificate as a mortgage. In few banks that is not getting accepted. So that is a request that she has put forth. In addition to that, another important point she has mentioned is the community centers which has been developed within the communities. It forms a kind of a Kalyan Mandap or a avenue where the slum communities and the families are able to hold their festivals or their key functions, which otherwise was a kind of an impossibility. So they have now formed a group, and they have levied user charges for using the communities where they are holding their birthdays, their marriages, and all of these things. So lastly, she wants to conclude that whatever the program has done to the communities have been significant and transformational to their lives. However, if the mini bank thing could be taken up and some solution could be given to them, they would be grateful and obliged. Thank you, madam. Over to you, Shishir sir.
Thank you, Mamatarani Adhikari, for all the valuable input that you have given. One thing she has told also, let me repeat once again also, that the land rights, they are not been able to give in the bank for the loan, for getting the loan other than the home loan, okay? Because the land rights that has been issued is, as per the act, it is heritable but not transferable. And it's not transferable, considering that the land that has been given the land rights can be also sold someday, and then it can be used for other purposes also. So that's why it is not transferable. But that's the challenge, one of the challenge that the slum people are also facing, because they wanted also the loan against their property, so that is also not been given by the bank. That's one challenge they are facing. So I think that is one of the gray area, which need further discussion and also elaboration that how we can resolve this issue. So now, after this, I found that two participants, one is Basundhara Mahajan and another is engineer Aditya Mittal. They both have raised their hand. Anything, madam and sir, you want to say now? Okay. And engineer Aditya Mittal.
Sir,
system
I
will
think participants
Okay,
can
okay, okay,
our system will not connect with them.
okay. So let us go now to Mr. Shubhagot Dasgupta, who has initiated the process, how we can start the entire process of slum upgradation, actually documenting the entire standard operating procedure and how we need to go ahead with that. And there are two very popular words in Odisha that if in the slums you go, that you can hear. That is, one is that the PNR and the IGAP. And PNR is like the DNA, like PNA is like a DNA of the slum upgradation. So participatory need assessment, and IGAP is the infrastructure gap assessment. So how those things has been done, and the standard operating procedure and the protocol has been developed, and how the process has been done, and how it has been also mid-course corrections has been done. I think Shubhagat sir will now going to elaborate this with Anindita. Both of them, Anindita Mukherjee and Shubhagato Dasgupta, both are going to elaborate on this. Thank you. Now you can go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Shishir. Hello, everyone. I will start the presentation, and Shubhagato will join in to explain the approach of Odisha in greater detail. So I'll take a couple of steps back and kind of draw on what Kirtibai mentioned in his opening remarks, is that slums are not an intractable problem. They are solvable realities, and if approached with the right mix of policy, vision, and collaborative partnerships across government departments, civil societies, and the communities themselves for whom these programs are getting designed. But to do so, we must begin to see cities as living conurbations, ecosystems where economically marginalized and thriving communities actually coexist and collectively drive the engine of the urban economy. It is the fragmentation of this very fabric, the persistence of spatial and social inequalities that often hinders realizing the full growth potential of these very living areas in the country. And it is also one of the key elements towards realizing our Viksit Bharat agenda for 2047. So with this background, what we'll do is we'll take you through we'll deep dive into the processes. We'll give you a context. We'll deep dive into Odisha's approach to habitat improvement, and then also take you through these various stages of slum development, negotiating, unlocking land for slums, and also where in unavoidable cases relocation was undertaken. So just to begin, and given we all are quite conversant with the background, is Asia houses the highest number of slum population. Asia is also going to contribute the highest number of highest urbanization growth in the coming years. And what is interesting is the United Nations Statistics Division has put out a data what says that 1% increase in urban population might contribute or is potentially contributing about 5% of growth in slum population in Asia, which is almost double that gets added to Africa. So given Asia is going to drive the urbanization narrative going forward, and also will have significant slum population, I think the positioning that slums are solvable is very timely and critical as we go ahead. India and its policies have been long since 2008 or so, have been focusing a lot on the inclusive urban development agenda. And the more recent policy frameworks have been very, very instrumental in driving the inclusive urban development agenda from the federal government systems. Like for city level trunk infrastructure, we have these large programs called Amrut and erstwhile Smart Cities Mission that across the 4,500 cities have been instrumental in delivering and infusing finance for developing trunk infrastructure. The Swachh Bharat mission, as you are all aware of, has been a key pivot point in the India's urbanization trajectory, which promoted access to individual toilet, and the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, which has been a very critical piece of the puzzle, which offered a bouquet of options for developing, making affordable housing accessible to much of the Indian population. And just as a progress, that Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana itself has been shown a very significant progress, with more than 1 million houses sanctioned. And most of these housing has been sanctioned for the non-million plus cities. And that's something that we'll keep coming back to as we discuss the Odisha model of transformation. While housing improvements were possible across these sizes, what lagged behind significantly was the last mile connectivity and the household level infrastructure. While we go ahead and explain to you the slum development agenda, I want to just remind each one of us that slums in India is defined as this compact settlements of poorly built tenements and unhygienic environment, which usually with inadequate infrastructure and that lack for proper sanitary and drinking water facilities. Now, interestingly, the very definition itself actually have always been more than a matter of semantics when it comes to the political economy of urban India. It has been a definition that exerted power, driven inclusion, and rights. Now, this comprehensive definition in itself also became a tool for negotiation, where on a case-by-case basis, those settlements which could be defined as slums could negotiate for settlement level infrastructure, while those that couldn't be defined as slums remained as urban poor settlements that yet remained outside these frameworks of negotiation, excluded from the benefits of urban development. Now, in this context, Odisha's habitat improvement approach, I'll hand over to Shubhagato to take you through. Shubhagato.
Thank you, Anindita. Thank you, Kirti Bhai. Thank you, Shishir Bhai, for the introduction. Now, deep diving into within this broader context of Indian sanitation, Indian slum redevelopment or development policy and housing efforts, the Odisha model is unique and special. To start off, just to give you a broad understanding of Odisha, though it was covered in the second webinar to quite an extent, it's one of the lower urbanized large states in India, but it still has an urban population of 1.28 million, 1.8 million slum dwellers. It's growing pretty fast in the last decade that the census measured it. Within this context, Odisha provides a very good opportunity to look at improving slum habitations in smaller cities. Next, please. Odisha itself, when the programs of slum land titling and the Jaga mission and evolved, it was already in a trajectory of reform across water and sanitation, and waste management and a number of areas. With regard to slum upgrading itself, as mentioned in an earlier webinar, the first issue was around creating a land rights to slum dwellers acts and rules, which got legal backing from the state itself. The Jaga Mission was established in 2018. Thereafter, the land rights were given starting from early 2019. And in 2020, it was found that alongside the land titling exercise, there needs to be an upgrading exercise for slum dwellers. And that started in 2020. And in 2021, there was an amendment to the Municipal Act earmarking 25% of the budgets of municipalities to target these areas and their services. And 2022, the municipal corporations also entered the slum upgrading exercise. Till 2021, it was mainly in the smaller cities, which are not municipal corporations. What this kind of shows is that incrementally the policies around slum upgrading and slum land titling were strengthened with from all directions, so that it could be more effective, as well as it kind of shows that the state government was quite a learning institution, and with its projects it could develop new understandings and find new solutions. As mentioned, 2017 was quite a landmark act, and this allowed for the whole land titling exercise to start. Next, please. And then through these large events, once the land titles were ready to be handed over, large events were organized to hand over these land titles. In the last webinar, a lot of this was discussed on how drones mapping, as well as community-based and NGO organizations helped in ground truthing all that exercise and how this was scaled. So without going into too much on the land rights, what happens next is that by 2019, 2020, the government also realizes that in spite of giving land rights to slum dwellers, the community infrastructure was not improving. Because while land rights allowed for the PMAY national government incentive to flow to the beneficiaries living in slums, there was no window for improving the roads, the drainage, the street lights, etc. within the slum. And hence the Jaga Mission looked at creating a slum upgrading program, which kind of dovetailed various resources from various parts of this, of the government of Odisha's own efforts in water, sanitation, waste management, street lighting, drainage, etc., and made sure that area-based programs in slums were well coordinated through the Jaga Mission. Next. On the land side too, by then it was we were realizing that while land rights certificates were easily handable in contexts where the land was owned by the state government or the municipal corporation as habitable land, there were a lot of slums settled, almost more than 50%, which were on lands that were not yet ready for land rights certificate, because they had to go through a process to get the registries updated, and often there were particular situations where the land could not be handed over straight off due to various concerns, and hence an exercise in trying to get these lands ready for land rights certificate was also undertaken since 2019. Next one. And this led to 3 levels of effort. The first was, as I mentioned, the slum upgrading exercise. The second was the unlocking of lands for settling slums. And the third was the new habitat and relocation. Anindita will take us through the slum upgrading and exercise in detail, as well as how the unlocking of lands beyond those owned by the state government housing department or the municipality for habitable purposes were unlocked. And then Vishnukanth later will take us through the new habitat and relocation exercise. Next, please. So broadly, this whole aspect was organized through a flow diagram for ease of application in every city. There was a whole set of slums which were on the left side, where households were eligible for LRCs because they were on well-settled urbanizable land, and hence the slum upgrading exercise was put in action there. In the middle, in the highlighted pink color, there are a series of lands like forest land, industrial land, temple land, where slums were also existed and which needed a whole process to make them eligible for LRCs. So that's the unlocking land part, which will be the second part of this presentation, the third part of this presentation going forward. And then in spite of that, there were some objectionable categories, typically lands owned by the government of India, such as railway land, defense land, as well as some hazardous land sites where relocation was deemed necessary. However, as you will see in the overall presentation, even after Vishnu's presentation, that these were less than 10% of all the slums of the state, numbering to 3,000 and above. So over to you, Anindita, to take us through the slum upgrading exercise.
Thank you, Shubhagato. So we deep dive on the slum upgrading exercise to understand what processes were undertaken. So around 2020, a detailed slum upgradation and delisting SOP was issued. The idea was to standardize the process. The idea was to first draft, as Shishir was mentioning, pilot it in select cities, develop a feedback loop for finalization of the slum upgrading SOP, and then finally issue a scalable slum upgrading and delisting SOP for adoption at scale across the Odisha state. The idea was to benchmark how this taking up slum infrastructure upgradation should be approached in the entire state. All municipal corporations, municipalities, and notified area councils, all urban areas were eligible under this initiative. And ward officer was identified as the key stakeholder who was leading this work in partnership with the slum dwellers associations. And the idea was that the upgradation projects process needs to be designed such that the slum becomes embedded and very much a part of the city fabric, as our SDA colleague Mamtadi highlighted for all of you. So 9 critical basic infrastructure were identified to be prioritized in the upgradation process. The first set of 3 infrastructure was at the household level. So household pipe water supply, household access to individual household toilet, and the electricity. The second set of infrastructure was settlement level infrastructure, pakka storm drains, pakka road, and street lights. And the third set of infrastructure that was that was game changing, as we heard from our colleague, was the community center, the open space development, and the children's play area development. More than 1,600 slums across 34 cities have been transformed so far into livable habitats, impacting about 4 million people. I'll play a short video demonstrating the various processes and slum upgrading process, and then take you through the process flow in detail so that we can clarify some of this.
Every human life matters and deserves dignity. Every family is entitled to security and a better life. Its initiative of transforming its slums into livable habitats with an objective of creating a slum-free Odisha. Odisha's slums account for 25% of its urban population. consisting of around 412,000 households. Since its launch in 2018, the Jaga mission, based on the landmark Odisha Land Rights to Slum Dwellers Act, has already granted individual land rights to over 60,000 slum dwellers. These initiatives of the state government also received global recognition, for which the state was awarded the prestigious World Habitat Award in 2019. The Jaga mission, associated with Tata Trusts as its technology partner and Center for Policy Research as its knowledge partner, is developing a template for a slum-free city, along with future slum proofing. The main objective is to move towards slum upgradation by addressing the primary inequalities prevalent in urban areas and integrating the informal settlements into the mainstream city fabric. The government is adopting a standard operating procedure for participatory upgradation of infrastructure and delisting of slums. The process is designed to be participatory and transparent, with the active involvement of community members, slum dweller associations and ward officers, making it a unique people's program. The first step of this process is participatory infrastructure needs assessment, followed by participatory planning and project report preparation based on the need assessment. Next, the infrastructure upgradation work will commence across the slum settlements, where the community will either be the executing agency or have a distinctive monitoring role. After completion of upgradation activities, the slum dwellers will initiate the delisting process, which will enable the settlement to be treated at par with any other part of the city. With this process, the Jaga mission moves to the next phase of the empowerment of slum dwellers through improving the infrastructure facilities and services in the slums, at par with other developed areas in the city, making Odisha slum-free.
So I'll just take you through the flowchart that got explained in the video as well. So the listing process started with the Usha survey, as my colleague Shishir and Suchi had demonstrated in the previous session, where they had given a detailed account of how the listing started. Now, within these identified slums, the 2919 slums, the next step was under upgradation to undertake a participatory need assessment, where the entire slum actually sat together to identify what kind of infrastructural needs are relevant for that slum settlement. And ward officer was a critical stakeholder on behalf of the ULB. A team from the urban local body, with constituting the municipal engineer, the community development person, the person having the maps, GIS maps, the MIS person, were also formulated to facilitate this participatory need assessment. Based on the need assessments, the ward officer, along with the municipal engineer, actually developed something called infrastructural gap profile for the slum, where across the 9 infrastructures, the benchmarking was done, that what percentage of slum had water supply, what percentage of slum has sanitation, across the 9 infrastructure areas. Now, if across these 9 infrastructure areas, the IGAP says that it has between 8. So initially when the SOP was developed, it was decided that around 80% of the infrastructure availability will make a slum eligible for delisting. But eventually, as the scale up happened in Odisha, government of Odisha decided it to take it to an ambitious 100%, which was a very, very progressive step. The next part was to design DPRs, the detailed project reports for executing the slum upgradation projects. And one of the critical part of the execution of these projects where Slum Dwellers Association was either an implementation partner or a monitoring partner in the project. So it was under the supervision or direct construction support from the slum dwellers that these projects were executed. And once the projects were completed, the Slum Dwellers Associations were to file for a delisting proposal, prepare a delisting proposal to the Slum Rehabilitation Committee that was developed under the district administration, as was also explained in the last webinar. Now, if the idea is that one, it should come from bottom up, the application, and that this will be verified by a team of the government officials and key actors in that area, who verifies whether the infrastructure upgradation has been up to the benchmark that government of Odisha has issued. And in case some gaps are observed, the proposal gets de-recommended, it goes back to project development, and then again the project execution and the recommendation can come again. The delisting procedure take place. There is an elaborate delisting procedure that was made to get away from the binary of these fabricated cities, so that the slums itself can become a very much part of the entire city fabric. And then the slum dwellers also had the option to rename their habitation, because some of these slums also are connected to their occupational identities that they might be wanting to get away from, and hence there was this provision also within the SOP. So this is the deep dive on the upgradation process. Now, while we were doing upgradation, we also understood that along with the government of Odisha and all other key actors, that the most challenging part is the slums that are not on the state and city government lands, which are not readily available for transferring tenure rights. And to move to ensure the slum upgradation itself doesn't become an isolated and success to just certain pockets of the cities. There was a critical need that these processes needed to be institutionalized within the prevailing legal and governance frameworks, architecture of the city. And so it was detailed when the unlocking process started to happen. Detailed planning for embedding and unpacking the prevailing rules and embedding the processes within those prevailing rules were undertaken. And why it was needed? Because when the tenure continuum was prepared for Odisha, we all realized that around 50%, 40 to 50% of the slums were actually outside the state and city government owned lands, and hence were creating a hindrance for infrastructure upgradation. So I'll first give you an example on how the forest land, slums on forest land was treated. It was a very important effort for coming two departments together, the Environment and Forest Department and the Housing and Urban Development Department, to actually interpret the prevailing Act of Forest Rights Act in the urban context, which was also one of the first that Government of Odisha did in that detail. And the idea was to develop an SOP which laid out the detailed process of how to go about slum upgradation in these slums on forest land. One of the critical part of the act was that if such development, infrastructural development are to be done on forest land, each of these infrastructural development was to be considered as a separate project. And in these cases, only less than 1 hectare of the land in each case was divestible now in favor of the infrastructure project. And slum dwellers associations became the counterpart for the Gram Sabhas of the rural areas to drive this process under the FRA Act. Very successful outcomes. The pilot started from Dhenkanal. And why it was important, you see the 253 slums spread across 45 ULBs were on forest land. So 32,000 families, more than 32,000 families were settled there. And hence it was a critical piece of the puzzle that needs to be put in place. Dhenkanal worked excellently. The urban local body of Dhenkanal worked tirelessly with the district administration of Dhenkanal to ensure that urban infrastructure was accessible for these slum dwellers on the forest land. Now, what happens if the land is owned by royal family or any other private entities or other government department? In such cases, SOPs were not given out. A simple land exchange framework was developed. And wherever such negotiations were possible on a department to department and department to private entities, concern would go on through sale, exchange, gift, or lease. The infrastructural access was easier. Wherever it wasn't possible, then they were to be taken up under new habitat. Also, one unique case in Odisha is many of the lands were on temple trust land. One of the key enablers of that negotiation was the lead administrative hiring in the act is actually done by the state government, and hence the collaboration between these two departments were much more robust, and given the semi-autonomous nature, the state government could actually give access to infrastructure across these slums on the temple land. The final piece of the puzzle, which my colleague Vishnu will take you through in greater detail, is the relocation. The relocation was called the New Livable Habitat. We had a detailed standard operating procedure, which Vishnu will take you all through, so I'll not spend time on this. So what I wanted to end at is that, India's first generation slum upgrading programs were actually efforts were in around 1970s, 80s under the aegis of the World Bank and then DFID that laid important foundations and kind of put up a framework for how the criticality of access to infrastructure can be met. While they demonstrated that upgrading could work as a cost-effective solution and community-friendly solution, they remained projectized with weak integration into municipal systems and little influence on land and policy planning. Through this chart, what I'm trying to conclude is that 90% of the Dhenkanal slums by 2021 were delisted, and these were integrated into the urban fabric. So Odisha's story offers a powerful example of how these complexities can be navigated through political vision, administrative continuity, and community partnership, integrating the urban core within the city fabric rather than at its margin. With this, I'll conclude and hand over to Shishir for further proceedings. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Shubhagato sir. Thank you, Anindita, for such a elaborate presentation. But this also we have told in almost all the webinars also. Once again, I'm repeating the same thing, that even if these works has already been done, but this is the minuscule in comparison if you look at the entire transformation of the slum. Because now the canvas is huge and lots of things need to be done. Today also in Odisha also lots of things needs to be done if we are thinking of actual slum transformation. So some of the participants are requesting questions on the what has been done on livelihood, what has been done on the some alternative energy. I don't have much answer to that because very less work has been done on that. Okay, so I think there are huge task for all of us, that how we can think of when we are saying slum transformation. This is actually half of the way we are reached, and we wanted to go to the full way, and we all are in that journey. So, because of the time, I'll just take Anindita for you one question that Mamta Jain, one of our participants, has asked that what factors drive 1% urban population increase, resulting in incident of 2% to 5% increase in slums? It's
I
so
will insist,
yeah, yeah.
Mamta, what I'll do is I'll share the UNSD statistics and the report in the chat box. Do go through and we can discuss that and see its merits in subsequent conversations. Thanks.
So now in the previous presentation, Shubhagato sir has been done and Anindita has done, they have indicated about the new livable habitat. So Vishnu was there, he's architect and a urban planner who led the entire process of the new livable habitat. And now I am requesting Vishnu to start his presentation. So Vishnu, you have now about 15 minutes that you can continue your presentation.
Thank you for your kind introduction, sir, and for providing me this platform to show my study and the learnings. And special regards to my fellow architects and urban planners in this podium who is anyone having over here. So, as explained by my former colleague about the concept, from here, I'm going to take you around the learnings and study of one of the vertical, which stands as bright as the flower appearing on the screen. Hope my screen is visible. I'm just confirming in a visual way.
Yes, it is visible. Yes.
Yes. So moving forwards, the new livable habitat. So we'll be showing a small picture here, which is a complete new livable habitat. We'll get back to this photo in a minute. Just I'll explain the story, then I'll show that photo again. So when understanding the new livable habitat, I will answer a basic question. What comes into mind is what is new livable habitat? It is like the slum is identified in situ. It cannot be settled in situ. That has to be relocated in mass, not like only one parcel or one particular portion of the slum has been relocated. Even though there are situations that where that entire slum is not in situ, like some part of the settlement can be settled in situ and part cannot be settled in situ. So we have undergone some kind of alternatives like redevelopment or why to avoid that the maximum possibility of relocation. And if at all the slum has to be relocated, it should be relocated in en masse. And it is a new mini plotted township, it appears like, with all basic infrastructure facilities and at par with the rest of the ULBs. So it is not like cannot be shown as like an isolated, it has some special characteristic. No, it is equal and part and parcel of cities. It's made with basic infrastructure facilities. And to have this complete process without any hurdles, we have that relocation being followed to the nearby tenable area following the standard operation procedures. As the procedure we followed for the delisting of the slum, similar kind of procedure, the complexities of the relocation has been addressed in that process and the procedure to be followed has been formulated. And for the construction of houses, we have the convergence with PMAWay. Based on that, we have that basic service provided to that new livable habitat. In total, this is the concept of new livable habitat. And yes, in the initial stage, we are trying to settle in situ following the standard operation procedure. But the slums which cannot be settled in situ, what can be done? So either two options are being explored. One is redensification of existing slum only if the part of slum can be settled within their portion only or through the densification of that slum. That possibility has been explored. Or if at all it cannot be done in situ, directly we are doing for the relocation. And to avoid the large scale relocation, the state has attempted alternatives as we discussed in that earlier presentation with the flow, if that with the land exchange with private entities or conversion of land classification to make the land leasable. Only after exhausting all the possible options for the relocation. Without relocation, the ultimate thing was to follow this standard operation procedure, which is strictly made for the slums on objectionable category of land. So, highlighting to that, continuation with that, what my former colleague has presented in the earlier presentation, we try to settle that slums which do not have LRC into non-objectionable category and objectionable category. In the non-objectionable category, those are there. So, we try to exchange a negotiation with the respective parties. If agreed, we try to settle in situ. If not, it are taken for the relocation. And the slums which are on objectionable category of land, those are strictly taken for the relocation. Thus are on the railway land or slums on defense land or environmental hazardous land near to the landfills like other calamities, water bodies. So what are the principles that we have? We have four principles for this new livable habitat. First thing has to exhaust all alternatives for in situ settlements. And second thing, the slums should be relocated in en masse and should be on the objectionable category. And the relocation is subject to the prior consent from the and the resolution from that slum dwellers or the representatives. And the fourth one, so we are trying to encourage the beneficial-led construction of the new livable habitat through the convergence with PMMA. So those are the principles, and let's go a little bit further into the flow of the new livable habitat, where the first thing comes into the picture is like identification of slums. So how much portion of slums, how many households, how the that area of that particular location of the slum, why it cannot be settled in situ. Those things are to be analyzed in the first of all, and only on that objectionable category or can be taken directly for the relocation. And simultaneously, urban local bodies also do a small exercise of identifying a vacant land banks near in their in the jurisdiction and creating a vacant land bank. So once that the slums that are to be relocated has been finalized and the count of numbers or households has been coming to that final count, saying that those many houses are to be relocated, they are sensitized and the capacity building of the SDA has been done through the community mobilization. So they have been aware saying that the situation is about and what are that alternative site options which is nearby to the existing slum will be shown to them. And that ULB will facilitate the community consent on relocation to identify site. And the SDA member who has representatives will be shown the sites and they will be given the consent saying that yes, we are ready to relocate to this particular parcel of land. Or they'll be given a 2 to 3 options of land to select into that based on their easiness of their livelihood or to that nearest proximity. So based on the selection of the site and their written consent only, they'll be finally taken for that relocation to the particular site. And in the meanwhile, once the site has been finalized, so the state team will develop that layout, thinking that what is the possible alternative or that accommodation of houses can be coming in the particular area. And once the layout has been prepared, that will be discussed with the Slum Developers Association, saying that this is what that layout looks like, and this is where the open spaces is coming. Houses will be command in that linear pattern, like row housing, and common service areas. So once that some dealers have, if they want any alterations, they are free to welcome the alterations. Where there are cases also when working for a few urban local bodies, they ask for the alterations, which I again further go through in the flow of the presentation. And that slum dwellers will finally agree to that participate design layout which has been finalized with their consent. They express their willingness, and if required, they can purchase that additional land also, not limited to that we are given 30 square meters only. If they are having the capability to increase that land area, they can purchase the additional land based on the benchmark value as and when released by that government of India. And yes, in the ones that they given the willingness and finalize that layout, that vertical will be going into two phases. One is the house construction, other one is the infrastructure required for that particular area. And when in that house construction, so the SDA will give that they have given the allotment through the lottery system. They'll given the housing allotment, and the issuance of letter of allotment will be given to them, and the final list of eligible beneficiaries will be prepared. The demarcation of number of plots will be made on that particular site. The distribution of LLC will be given and encourage that beneficiary to avail that PMAY support or available housing scheme to start the house construction. And simultaneously, we have the help of urban local bodies engineers. We will take the physical survey of that area for the creation of infrastructure is required. DPR will be prepared if the area is than more than 1 acre of land, and that laying and extending of basic infrastructure procedure will be followed on the site. And the simultaneous act is complete, where that house construction will be complete on one hand, and the basic services will be also provided to that particular location. This new livable habitat will be completed. Post completion, the slum will be relocated to this new livable habitat, and the land which they have been residing, it will be taken by that urban local body and handed over to that respective custodian. And this new livable habitat will be drained, and from SDA they will be formulated into Residents Welfare Association. And here I will like to take you to the case of a few urban local bodies where this new livable habitat has started. So starting, I'll take you to Kesinga. So the image which was shown in the cover page is this image, which I would like to present to you if I say that was that a slum. So no, it used to be a slum, but no one remembers. No one had to believe for that. And going to the process, so this is the complete procedure which has been followed when that Slum Dwellers Association has been asked for the relocation. They were a little bit skeptical. Oh, where we will be relocating, how it will be happening. So through the use of medium, it was educated to them and made them aware. Like this is the process of how it happens. First, you start the house construction, and simultaneously, your remaining services will be coming into the picture along with the common spaces. And once the completion is happened, so this is what the final picture of that new livable habitat, which we can see with open spaces, where there's dedicated space for the children for the play, and the completed houses, which has been taken in the support of PMAY. Here I show a small video of the learning experience from the new livable habitat.
ओडिशा बस्ती बासिंदाଙ୍କୁ भू अधिकार अधिनियम 2017 अनुଯାयी केसिंगा विज्ञापित अंचल परिषद द्वारा संपादित होइतिबा बस्तीर पुनर्विकास और नूतन बासयोग्य बस्ती निर्माण संक्षिप्त विवरणी मु श्री अशोक कुमार पटनायक पौरजंत्री प्रदान करुअछि। वर्तमान मु केसिंगा रे नूतन बासस्थान सृष्टि पई आम द्वारा अनुसरण करा जायथिबा पद्धति को उपस्थापित करिवा पई जाउछि। रेल जमी रे रहुथिबा दुईटी बस्ती ओडियापड़ा और अंबाजी मंदिर पड़ा रेल विभाग बस्ती बासिंदा को विस्थापित हेबा पई मध्य निर्देश देइथिले। एहा परे बस्ती बासिंदा को चिन्हट होइतिबा स्थान को निया जाइथिला एवं नूतन स्थान को स्थानांतरित करिया पई सेमानकर सम्मति निया जाइथिला। तापरे तहसीलदार को द्वारा चिन्हट होइतिबा जमी को उपयुक्त चिठी माध्यम रे यूएलबी को हस्तांतर करिथिले। उक्त बस्ती स्थानांतर पई उपरोक्त प्रस्ताव को यूएआरआरसी कमिटी अनुमोदन करिथिले। एहा परे बस्ती बासिंदाଙ୍କ सह आलोचना करा जायथिला एवं सेमानଙ୍କର दृष्टिकोण अनुଯାयी एक लेआउट योजना प्रस्तुत करा जायथिला एवं सेही लेआउट टी उक्त बस्ती बासिंदाଙ୍କ द्वारा अनुमोदित मध्य होइथिला। तापरे बस्ती बासिंदाଙ୍କର दर्शन अनुଯାयी लेआउट समाप्त हेबा परे जमी बंटन पई लटरी करा जायथिला एवं उक्त लटरी टी सेमानଙ୍କ कमिटी माध्यम रे ही करा जायथिला। लटरी समाप्त हेबा परे एलआरसी एवं पीएमवाई बस्ती बासिंदा को बंटन करा जायथिला। सड़क, ड्रेन, जल जोगाण, विद्युत जोगाण, स्ट्रीट लाइट, परिचय, खोला स्थान एवं शिशु खेल उपकरण भली नूतन बासस्थान रे जोगाई दिया जीवाकू थिबा विभिन्न भित्तिभूमि सुविधा पई डीपीआर यूएलबी द्वारा प्रस्तुत होई जगह मिशन कार्यालय को अनुमोदन पई दाखल करा जायथिला। तापरे लेआउट अनुଯାयी साइट रो प्लॉट डिमार्केशन करा जायथिला एवं हिताधिकारी माननकू सेमानकर व्यक्तिगत प्लॉट देखा जायथिला। एहा परे हिताधिकारी माने सेमानकर व्यक्तिगत घर निर्माण आरंभ कले। एहारी मध्यरे परिचय मध्य समाप्त होई सारिथिला एवं क्लस्टर सेफ्टी टैंक मध्य समाप्त होई सारिथिला जहाँकि हिताधिकारी माननकू विश्राम नेबाकू एवं सेमान निर्माण सामग्री गच्छित करिवा संगे संगे सेफ्टी टैंक रे अंडरग्राउंड वाटर रिजर्वर मध्य परिवार सेवा साहाय्य करथिला। भित्तिभूमि कार्य समाप्त हेबा परे बस्ती बासिंदाଙ୍କ द्वारा नूतन बासस्थान नामकरण निष्पत्ति निया जायतिला एवं चूड़ांत करा जाय।
जगह खणे खणे समस्तंकर हला निजर पटा बोली कर पाई पारनु आर इने जेन सुविधा मन अच्छे सर सेटा आम चाही करे भी केबे भी करी भी नहीं पारथे तू
पानी फाणी किछि सुविधा सेठी नथिला एठी हमको बहुत सुविधा अछि। घर द्वार सब भल लैट्रिन बाथरूम किचन सब देइ छन हम पई हम बहुत शांति रे अछि एठी आसी पर पे मिल नहीं करे।
स्वप्न रे भी भाभी नहीं थाई जे हमके पक्का घर पक्का रास्ता एते बढ़िया पार्क आ एते बढ़िया कम्युनिटी हॉल एते बढ़िया परिवेश मिलबा बोली भाभी नहीं थाई।
परिचय हमर सब बदली गला, ई जगह बदली गला, परिवेश बदली गला। एठी रे हम वर्तमान रे खुशी रहू।
धन्यवाद।
So that was the case of Kesinga, which I have taken a medium of the one of the wall painting over there. And coming forward to the Denkanal, this we have 3 slums to be relocated. So those slums have been relocated to the nearby existing delisted slum, which is Korean Joanga Sahi, and the site which was shown here as identified site as a new label habitat. So for this particular site, so we have been drawn the infrastructure from that neighboring slum itself. So these have been already delisted slum and it's been catered with infrastructure services. It has been not a problem for that. And to develop this new level habitat, 2 options have been given to them. It's based on that creation of open space in the center or in the corner, where the ULB, it's an option given to the SDA to select their respective alterations they can done for the site plan. And this was the completed photo of Denkanal, which we can see with the houses and open play area. Then I would like to take you to the Gopalpur. So here, if you can see, this was that render which has been supported to that while getting executed. So this is the one learning from here is this particular slum is near to that the sea area. And they have been given 2 alternative site areas when being considered for relocation. So one is to accommodate within that existing slum area. And the second one is to that one identified government vacant land near to that slum. So this particular slum dwellers called as Mayfair Sahi, because it is adjacent to the Mayfair Hotel, it was given that name as Mayfair Sahi. So they wanted to be into the nearest location only because they don't want to go to the furthest and mingle with the other community members. So here they have been given that accommodation of a particular number of households that can be accommodated into this given site of new livable habitat. And here, since it is near to the shore, we see that there is a salt breeze will be coming, and for the rest of the areas, we provided a community center in an typical design of like an open structure. Here, it is a closed structure. So where there is really no corrosion of that sea breeze can happen. So we have followed that having a Mission Shakti Gruha instead of the community center. And these are the houses designs which has given to them to make them aware what is the possibility for the house construction. So here, if we can see, they have a special requirement. They don't want their house to be a typical box shape. They want it to be an longitudinal ones. So where they have a smaller opening and wide interior spaces. So in that medium, so they have been requirement. They have been given alternatives of having the staircase either interior or the exterior or the storage spaces and the bedroom spaces for them. So this was the case of Gopalpur. And when make that study, so we have came to that thinking that why not we have a model templates to be shared with the urban local bodies when they consider for the relocation. They initially come up with a model template saying that based on that requirement of 50 households. So there is a requirement like a template which is been made, which thinking that site itself is a rectangular parcel of area, which the site will not be rectangle in that anything in that reality. But as assuming it's a rectangle piece, how a 50 houses can be accommodated. So with the central open space and that community center, and along with that what do you call the community infrastructure also at the same time. So that was the model layout which has been given as one of the model, and accordingly we have been paid the tentative estimations will be taken. So how much will be the cost required for provision of basic infrastructure facilities to that particular site considered for 50 households. And accordingly, to if it is 100 households, how it is going to be placed with. Where again try to have maximizing emphasis on having central common spaces. So any spaces that can be used categorized for the common facility will be in the center positions, and the rest houses will be surrounded along to that common spaces. So according estimation has been done for that 100 households. And if it is more than 100 households, have approximately like 200. Say 22 design has given to them. Based on that, they can come up with an alternatives and according to the shape of the site. And going to the in detail of house plans, so they have yes, as an typically saying that key house is a big dream for every one of us to construct. So basically, rather than a man, women household have their more interest saying that he or a vision saying that my house should be having this much of space, or like the land should be of this much of land, or the space should be spacious, bedroom should be in particular corner and all. So based on that understanding, we have been tried to give alternative arrangements. So some people prefer to have a rectangular piece, some people have to have a square, and some wanted to have a longitudinal house plans. So based on that alternative possible length and breadth of that particular house blocks has been worked out. So if the capacity of that slum dweller has to have a 45 square meters of area or 60 square meters of area where they have a purchasing capacity, they can be given to that, and 30 square meters area is the basic layout which we are following. So in the situation of in longitudinal house layout, they are required, which is 3 meters by 10 meters. So these are the possible options can be used by them. So that was then one option given to them. And if they want somewhere around 4 meters by 7.5 meters with the interior stays or exterior stays, that is the arrangement given to them, possible option. And there is one more option also, since that construction of staircase itself will be a major component in the house construction. So one scenario in Dankanal, we followed for then a common shared staircase, where two dwelling units is being provided with a single staircase where they can use for the common purpose to use their terrace. So that is the option number one, which we can be seen here with the staircase option. And there are multiple options given to them if they want to separate wash and toilet and the internal staircase circulation. Accordingly, the spaces has been designed and provided to them, and they have taken into their consideration also, and it's been implemented on ground. So that was an happy to see the process just been happening. So these are the few of the photos from the portfolio of, which we developed for the new livable habitat and complete a new livable habitat. So with this, I would like to conclude my presentation, and thank you all for being with me patiently and going through this.
Thank you, Vishnu. Thank you for such a nice presentation. And once again, I am saying, even if these works has been done, then lots of work need to be done. And also the one good thing is also that none of the new livable habitat that has come up is not more than 1 kilometer radius from the existing slum. So that is within 1 kilometer radius of the existing slum. So that has no negative impact on their livelihood or the work that they are doing in all the places. And in the second webinar, we have explained that how we have identified the land in backend land in the urban local bodies, then how we have done a ground truthing, and how we have discussed with the urban local body, and how we have identified those land. Okay, so this is a program in which the stage one of the program is an outcome for the stage two. If you have the products of the stage one, that is for the stage two, that will be used in the stage two, and stage two, the products will be used in the stage three, and similar way, so that complementing each pages, complementing to each pages work. So that's why it is very logically, it is being, I would say logically, it is being very efficiently being done, and none of the page has been wait the next phase to be completed, and then they will go to the next. But simultaneously, the work has been took place. Even if the massive scale of rehabilitation and the slum upgradation and the transformation work has undertaken, the infrastructure has been built, the houses has been built, about 42,000 houses has been built, and now in this phase, government is going to build about another 1 lakh houses, more than 1 lakh houses. So after all this, also I think there are lots of work need to be done in Odisha and in other places of for the slums. Okay. So if anyone has any questions, most of the questions we have addressed, but anyone have any specific questions for any speaker, then we'll be happy to address that. You can raise your hand so that we can ask you to ask the question. Okay, Tapos Das. Kritika, will you unmute them? Tapos Das. Okay, I think some issue, and then may I request Abha Misra? Abha Misra, you are in mute.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think it's quite a lot of work has been going on. But as I think somebody had also asked one of the questions in the overall, the land rights, what has been the exact reason why loans are not being able to, be taken? Because if you have pattas in hand, the banks should be able to give it. The secondly, the other thing which was mentioned was that most of these slum area were developed within that 1 kilometer radius area. Were these on the government lands available, or because in most of the cities sometimes it happens that you don't have government land right next to these slum areas? It could be private lands, and also, so how was that tackled, if any, till now? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Abha. Suchi, can you give the answer to the first question? I will go to the second question. Yeah.
Yes, sir. The reason why financiers have not been able to offer a loan to land rights is land rights clearly mentions that it is only mortgageable for the purpose of residential construction, for home loan only. It cannot be used for loan against property. This is one. There are instances where few of the financiers have lended on the land rights, taking land rights as mortgage documents for residential purposes. However, the risk which the majority of the financiers have expressed is the SARFAESI Act, which primarily says that in case of default or in case of auction, the land rights does not get covered under the SARFAESI Act. So what could be the resolution to that? So here the state, there has been conversations from the government with the financiers where things like tripartite agreement and all of these things are under discussion. However, we are yet to hear from a final decision on what could be done. Meanwhile, there are financiers who have taken a way out and have lended, and they have shared with us that the default percentage is 0.01, and that was for the reason of health grounds on which the default had happened. There is another key observation by the financiers who have shared with us is that because the slums act as a community entity, so whenever there's a loan which has been taken, the community takes the onus of repaying of those loans as an entity. So if some households misses out on certain installment, then the community comes up and has kind of repaid on that. And that's the reason why there has been a default percent of 0.01%. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Suchi. Abha, addressing to your second question, that about the land availability, in Odisha, we have not done on any private land, or we have not explored that much, but we have explored that in most of the cities, the government land is available. Okay. So, and also I believe that in most of the cities in India, also government land is available. But you go to a city administrator and ask a question that whether land is available, you will always listen to that no. So that's why that we have discussed in our second webinar that we have taken the satellite map of all the cities, 115 cities of Odisha. We have started identifying which are the vacant lands are available next to the slum. And also we have done a ground truthing. Yeah. Also, we have done a ground truthing also that how we can, if we can see that if there is no construction or nothing, no like any court case or something is pending on that particular land. And based on that, we have done it. But I have, my experience says that in all 115 cities, the land is available in the heart of the city also, but the administrators always say no, that land is not available. So for that, you have to put some effort. Thank you so much. I think Tapos Das now has raised a hand, and if you can come up with it, Tapos Das.
Sorry, sir.
Yeah, please, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, all of you. I'm a mid-career researcher, and my research focus area are involving habitat, livelihood, and urban slums or low-income settlements. This is an excellent presentation and opportunity to learn from how slum or low-income settlement problem is solvable. I think this practice and this experience could spread, and I think it is necessary to spread how you are doing this. So, do you have any further mission or further commitment to spread your example other cities, other countries? So this is my just a small question to learn from you. Thank you very much.
Anindita, will you be able to respond to this?
Yeah, thank you, both Abhaji and Tapush ji for such important questions, and also all the participants who have raised very critical questions, which Shishir has kindly responded to. Tapush ji, we are working very actively to get the learnings to a larger group of researchers, and thank you for joining. I think you are one of our ambassadors very much to take this and give opportunity for us to think through in other country contexts. We'll be very, very delighted to partner across the panel. I think Shishir, Girtibai, Suchi, Shubhagato, all of us will remain available for any opportunity to collaborate on other country contexts. But what we feel is from our experience, given that the urbanization across the countries are driven by smaller cities, where in situ urbanization and not the large metropolises, which kind of dominated the narrative of slum development across South Asia. Here is a great opportunity to learn from Odisha, which kind of addresses these questions of availability of land, more sparse settlements that are not as dense as the Mumbai or a Delhi settlements, and so that we can rewrite the discourse on slum development for these majority of the urban settlements, which are newer, which are more opportunistic. Yeah, that will be my response. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Can I add something?
Yeah, please.
I learned about SDI earlier from my senior colleague and my line manager, but here I learned extensively this issue, and I'm very much surprised to know the detail. And I think this learning must be scalable and must be spread like other low-income countries all over the Asia or other countries. This is excellent initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tapas Das, and thank you, Anindita, both of you. And Vishnu, now there is a question for you, that why there are roofs are flat in Odisha?
Yes, sir, I would thanks for that question. So since when the house construction has started, we cannot expect the beneficiary to complete this construction at quick go. So in the concept of incremental method, so he can construct the house whenever and how the fund for him can be adjusted. And as we have tapped the TMAV convergence and which gives assistance for the construction of G structures, so the G structures were built. And the photos which were shown are also then that housing constructions was done on the particular side. But yes, and since that staircase provision is also given for the accessing of the roof, in tomorrow's situation, when he has a capacity to go for G+1 or G+2, he can be given a space to construct or when his family get increased, he has given provision to construct a G+1 structure also. So in that line, the roofs have been kept as flat because these are the G structures only provided for the context.
Thank you, Vishnu.
Thank you.
Sujata ji, you have raised your hand. You have any question? Please unmute yourself and please ask. Okay. So there is a question in the chat for the Shubhagat sir. Why FIR is it too less for development of new habitat and only ground floor construction? Why not G+3 and G+4?
So I'll ask Vishnu also to contribute, but essentially the driver for the land parcels are established under the Land Rights Act, and each slum dweller family with each slum family is to get this 30 square meters. Thereafter, if they build additionally on it, that is the FAR is transferred to them. Yeah. So these colonies are built up essentially to provide basic housing and the land right to each slum dweller family. But Vishnu, over to you.
Yeah, what you said was absolutely right, sir. So they haven't been worked out on saying that like in Dharari or other slum context, when we say about relocation or redevelopment, they think of going vertical. But since you mentioned it in a very elaborate way, that was the reason. And yes, if they have the capacity to go vertically, the provision was given to the slum dweller to construct G+1 structures in the given parcel of land. And to that house, which has been cannot be settled in situ, a parcel of land has been given in that relocation site. Yeah.
Thank you, Vishnu and Subhagat sir. Sujata ji, you have still raised the hand. You have any question, you can ask. You need to unmute yourself and you have to ask the question. Okay. I think there is no more question, and now let me hand over to Kirti sir to conclude this discussion. Today's discussion. Kirti sir.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes.
No, it's been very rich. It's a very rich effort and it's a very rich presentation. And a huge amount of learning in every aspect. Be that definition of slum, be dealing with, I think, the issue of community, be that legislation, be that land ownership. On everything, such enormous amount of thought has gone into it. And I think what is very interesting is this institutionalization seems to be happening. And that is where I think a huge amount of learning is going to happen in terms of going forward. Not only, I think, I'm working in this area for last probably 55 years. And seen what is happening all over the world, more or less. I have honestly not seen such elaborate understanding and response on every aspect. And as a matter of fact, one thing that I want to do is to take the first possible flight and spend a few days there to find some faults to the system. So, but it's terrific. Second thing that I wanted to mention was the Mamatarani Adhikari. I think she needs to be introduced to the Chief Minister of West Bengal. She is a real Mamta. And I think she was hugely confident. She said many things, but 2 or 3 things that stuck, and I really want to emphasize them. One is the whole aspect of empowerment. She said that the committee, the process of committee formation, process of being in the committee, working in the committee, empowered her and other women. And this is something which fits very well with my thinking for a long time. That housing is one area, especially when it comes to poor. If you do processes very well, you empower people in the process. Not only you give them houses, you build communities, you build people. And that this is happening on the scale. And as a matter of fact, I've written about this. I was involved with this 50,000 houses program in Sri Lanka. And the title of the paper I wrote is this: Building Communities While Building Houses. And it's doable. And I think it's wonderful this is happening on this particular scale. It's very important. Other thing that Mamatarani mentioned struck me. She said, up till now, a garden and an open space had no meaning to us. This is a kind of dehumanization that urban slums do. A garden and open space, is everyone's fundamental right and is everyone's, I think, living experience. And to have really felt so alienated. And she articulated that very beautifully, I think, and I thought that was something very, very interesting. I don't want to summarize everything, but I honestly, Vishnu Bhai, have some quarrels with housing you're doing. And I really think there are serious problems, honestly, if you allow me to say that. Someone asked this question about density. Whether slums or no slums, every piece of land in our cities is very expensive. It's needed. And therefore, its maximum utilization is optimum utilization is an absolute must. And therefore, the question of density, which someone asked, was in the context of how are you using the land in the context of cities' need, not a community's need. Not a slum's need, but city is going to need this land. And I personally feel just within 10 minutes, I'll sit down with you and double the density of the housing you're doing. 10 minutes. I won't require 11th meeting. And as a matter of fact, while thinking about this, I was thinking that if you agree and Das Sahab agrees, I've been doing national competitions for last 4 years called Improving Livability of Small Houses. And I'm very happy to announce the next entire competition where countries' designers will participate in terms of how to do innovative housing in this project in Odisha. And I'll tell you why I'm saying this. See, there is nothing static about housing. Everything about housing is dynamic. Size of the family is not static. Income is not static. How many people will live in the house is not static. Location, the value of the location is not static. And everything about housing that we do is static. Design is static. The money that you pay back and a loan you have taken is on static income. And the moment you do that, you essentially land into, I think, different sorts of problems. And like say, for instance, is absolute must that houses of this kind should be incremental housing. And you talked about incremental housing. You said that we've done flat slabs, we have staircases, and people can build. But you essentially have given 300 square foot from ground to what they can say sky to a family. And there are a large number of families who need housing. You're going to come in the near future. And there are ways of dealing with it. You won't believe it. I, as an architect, have designed 18-story building where all 18 floors are extensible. You can do incremental housing even on 18-floor structures. So what I'm kind of trying to say is that there is a fair amount of need. And like, say, for instance, the T-square and set square, which you saw on all the drawings. People do not live like that. Those settlements have a very different life. And there are ways of dealing with it. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm not criticizing, because such a wonderful, great program. But I thought this is one dimension that one probably could look at much more creative, because there's a huge amount of creativity involved in this. I'll tell you this. When I was involved in this 50,000 houses program in Sri Lanka, I refused to design. I'm an architect. I said, the moment I get into the whole process of design, I will begin to ignore the people's design ability. Because it's so simple. And I'm not saying that it should not be done in this particular case, but there are a large number of ways in which one can do this. And I think this particular dimension needs to be strengthened. I hope I will not be misunderstood as criticizing this, but I'm saying this, there are huge number of possibilities that one could examine, both in terms of incrementality, in terms of quality, in terms of participation, in terms of cost reduction, in terms of climate change and all that. I think because you're doing housing. And one last point in this is this, that I've not really come across this. That when you do slum upgrading, one of the important aspects is to kind of decongest, I think, the slum. Either to create small little open spaces, in order to kind of keep, to install services, or to kind of create small little open spaces, where courtyards are created, what have you. And one of the possibilities is this, that you could probably do a part. So suppose, I think, one exercise that I'd done was this, that if you really were to do good in situ slum upgrading, you probably will have to kind of relocate 20% of the families, say out of 200, say 40. If those families are not willing to go, and if you really become selective and essentially create 2-story structures or 3-story structure, you could do huge amount of, I think, de-densification of the family. And that's a very important, very useful strategy. Especially, and I think you thought about this a great deal, and you talked about this a great deal as well. But I think there are additional dimensions that one could look at in the context of judicious use of the land, and seeing that less number of families and people have to relocate. So I think at some point of time, Vishnu Saab, I'd like to kind of sit down with you and talk about this. But thank you very much. Shishir Saab has been absolutely stunning in terms of information that we got. I also wanted to ask this question because I'm myself going to do this. As soon as this is finished, I'm going to ask Chitrakshi, my other colleague, to send me the slides, some very beautiful slides. And if the slides could be made available, will be very useful. Very, very thoughtful, very beautifully made slides. And I think it will be very useful to learn more about this whole work that is going to happen. So thank you very much, Anindita ji, Vishnu Saab, Suchishnanda ji, Shubhagato Bhai, Shishir Das, and everyone else, and of course my colleagues at INHAF. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.